Travels to Europe in times of COVID. UK has placed India on a red travel list since 1.6 million new infections have been reported in 1 week in India. Turkey daily coronavirus infection numbers have soared above 60,000. Portugal has been referred to as a coronavirus crisis country when at the end of January, 878 cases were reported in 7 days, more than 7 times higher than in Germany at the time. India has been hit by a COVID tsunami with over 1.6 million infections within the last 7 days and was added to the UK's TRAVEL red list amid concern over a new variant that has emerged in the country, British media reported. The UK government decision to place India on the UK's coronavirus travel list came as a surprise, as spokesman for India's ruling party said, responding with there is a lack of data on the variant in India. However, the data shows the daily average is now about 220,000 new cases, the fastest rate of COVID-19 spread in the world. UK health officials are currently investigating whether a COVID variant first found in India spreads more easily and evades vaccines, the BBC reported. So far, the UK is reporting 108 cases of a new India variant in the United Kingdom. Tough measurements should have been taken earlier in order to avoid spreading the virus, UK ministers were told. In the last 2 days, only India, with a population of more than 1.36 billion, has surpassed Turkey's number of cases. When taking a slightly longer view with a 7-day rolling average, Reuters data shows India ranks 4th globally in new cases. PHOTO Elizabeth Lang. So, what is happening in Europe? Turkey's daily coronavirus infection numbers have soared above 60,000 and President Tayyip Erdogan is likely to order a tightening of restrictions this week ahead of the tourism season, a senior government official told Reuters. Turkey ranks 4th globally in new case numbers, which peaked near 56,000 last week, a 5-fold jump from early March, when Erdogan loosened social curbs in what he called a period of controlled normalization. PHOTO Elizabeth Lang. The rest of Europe is implementing stricter COVID restriction with curfews and quarantines. Among them is Germany, which is going into another lockdown. Travel in and out of Germany is permitted, but travelers have to provide a negative COVID test before boarding an inbound flight, whether or not the area they are traveling from is classified as a risk area. Holiday trips within Germany are discouraged, with hotels across the country only allowed to accommodate travelers for necessary and expressly non-touristic purposes, such as people on business trips. The same rule applies to campsites. Denmark is already using a corona pass to allow people to enter hairdressers and beauty salons, but now France has adapted a mobile phone app to enable people to travel to other French territories, such as Corsica and Reunion. The TOUSANTICOVID Everyone Against COVID app can now be updated to show a negative COVID test or proof of vaccination. Travelers will still be allowed to provide their documents on paper, reported BBC. All eyes are now on the Netherlands, which will be on the government's evening press conference, where a cautious relaxation of COVID measures is in the cards. The cabinet is expected to agree to reopening cafe and bar terraces under strict rules and an end to a controversial overnight curfew. France has become the first EU member state to begin testing a digital coronavirus travel certificate as part of a Europe-wide scheme. Brussels hopes this will allow people to travel more freely within the bloc by the summer, wrote The Guardian. The TOUSANTICOVID app, part of the country's contact tracing program, has been upgraded to store negative COVID-19 test results on travelers' mobile phones and is being trialed on flights to Corsica and overseas departments from this week. The trial will be extended from April 29 to include vaccination certificates, officials told Le Monde. England was celebrating as it came out of the lockdown last Monday. For the first time in months, pub gardens, shops, and hairdressers have reopened in England, as rules were also eased in the rest of the UK. Streets were packed with roads closed to give more space for al fresco drinking and dining. Outdoor drinking and dining resumed on Monday for the first time since England's lockdown began on January 5. Although for millions of people who lived under Tier 4 restrictions in December, the wait had been even longer. Despite flurries of snow in parts of the country, people flocked to pubs and restaurants to celebrate the return of some of their freedoms. Shoppers were seen queuing outside shops in Birmingham, Liverpool, Newcastle, and London, as non-essential retail opened for the first time since January 4. Shoppers flocked to the high street, with long queues seen outside some retailers. Other people took advantage of England's gyms and zoos reopening, British media reported. PHOTO Elizabeth Lang. People were also desperate for a haircut. One early bird customer arrived as early as 5:45 a.m. on Monday morning, as his hairdresser, Alan, was opening up at 6 a.m. For the next 3 weeks, Alan has customers booked in from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m., 7 days a week, with only a few 15-minute breaks each day. We learned after the first lockdown that you just have to embrace it and commit to longer hours to get as many clients in as possible to get through the backlog, Alan told The Guardian. The most popular European holiday destinations such as Spain, Italy, Greece, and Portugal should be on the UKGOVERNMENT' green list for foreign travel, said the boss of EasyJet. The earliest date that foreign holidays could be permitted for people in England under Prime Minister Boris Johnson's roadmap for easing restrictions is May 17. Mr. Lundgren was asked if he expects destinations such as France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, Croatia, Cyprus, and Turkey to be on the green list. He replied yes, by the time we open up for travel on the 17th of May, and if the government continues to have the plan in place on the two-test system. Italy's COVID plan is to replicate the Greece model and to have its own COVID-free islands, similar to Greece. In Italy, it would affect the residents of the islands such as Sicily, Sardinia, Elba, Capri, Ischia, the island of Ponza, and many smaller ones that do not have industries and depend entirely on tourism. Greece is striving to get all the inhabitants of the 69 Greek islands vaccinated by the end of the month in order to start the tourist season as early as May. Boris top, Merkel flop. German newspaper headline. Germany vaccination rollout has been slow and is also lacking solutions, while the government tends to beat the virus with bureaucracy. This is in sharp contrast to Italy, where the vaccination program with general practitioners already started beginning March 2021, as GPs are also vaccinating elderly people at home. The Italian way seems to be working well with vaccination centers, even at Roma Termini, Rome's main railway station, where Italian MP Mario Draghi and his wife were vaccinated recently. Even the Auditorium Parco della Musica, a glamour music hall, has been transformed into a chic and professional vaccination center. Meanwhile, in Rome's shopping areas, city center test and vaccination venues have popped up. It must be the Draghi effect, Italians say in disbelief. It doesn't seem to be in Italy that all is handled very professional with hardly any waiting. Mobile vaccination trucks are also being sent out to suburbs in the city outskirts. Train passengers leaving on fast rail service such as for Chiris in Rome are requesting to board the trains only with a negative COVID test, with special test stations installed near the train platforms. France suspended all flights to and from Brazil to contain the spread of a highly contagious new COVID-19 variant picked up in the country. All travelers embarking in Brazil must already have a negative COVID test before leaving and upon arrival in France, and are required to self-isolate for 10 days. In Switzerland, global advances in vaccinations have given Swiss international airlines hope. Some countries have already announced that they will break entry restrictions on vaccinated people. The airline desperately wants to transport these passengers again. The coronavirus pandemic has plunged the aviation industry into its worst crisis since World War II. The number of passengers shows how badly Swiss Airlines has suffered from global COVID measures. Last year, the Lufthansa subsidiary transported 4.8 million passengers, the same level as Swissair in 1973. The Swiss newspaper, Blick, reported in March that already the airline is looking into getting all crews fully vaccinated. Since April 18, Switzerland has been coming out of the lockdown, with restaurants allowed to open their outdoor space, and gyms and hairdressers are finally open again as well. PHOTO Elizabeth Lang. In recent months, Portugal has been repeatedly referred to as a coronavirus crisis country. At the end of January, the country was the world's largest viral hotspot with a 7-day incidence of 878, more than 7 times higher than in Germany at the time. But while Germany is again struggling with rapidly growing infection rates, the incidence in Portugal has now fallen to a mere 28. The country currently has fewer than 10 deaths per day, while Germany has twice as many deaths relative to population size. While Spaniards were not allowed to leave their own regions until April 9 in order to avoid a resurgence of coronavirus infections over Holy Week, similar restrictions do not apply to international tourists, who can still fly into Spain on presentation of a negative COVID test. Madrid has been the only major European capital to maintain social life practically unrestricted since a nationwide lockdown was fully lifted in June 2020, with cinemas and theaters also open. A recent influx of French tourists who had traveled to Madrid to escape lockdown restrictions at home has raised eyebrows in Spain, but their presence has been welcomed by the hospitality industry. Spaniards are also allowed to travel abroad, subject to the rules governing visits to other countries. An exception is made for British or Irish passport holders or people with UK residence rights. But they must first pay to quarantine in a government-approved hotel for 10 days, according to gov.uk guidance rules. During their stay, passengers will have to take 2 coronavirus tests, but a negative test result does not mean they can shorten their time in quarantine. They will not be able to end it early through the test or release from the scheme either. Nearly 40 countries are currently on the UK government's red list. Here are the countries from which travel is banned: Middle East, Oman, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates UAE. Africa: Angola, Botswana, Burundi, Cape Verde, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Eswatini, Ethiopia, Kenya, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Rwanda, Seychelles, Somalia, South Africa, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe. In Belgium, the Easter holidays officially took place through April 18, but started a week earlier for pupils and parents. The government closed schools from March 26 as part of a tightening of its long-running lockdown. As part of its response to a rise in cases, the government also maintained a ban on non-essential travel in and out of the country, a move criticized by the European Commission. The tourism ban will be in place until the end of the holiday period. So CALLED non-essential journeys are still allowed within the country, which means day trips or a few days away from home are possible. Holiday parks, hotels, and campsites are open, but restaurants and bars remain closed, The Guardian reported. After recent chaotic scenes at Brussels Midi train station, where huge crowds of people were left waiting for trains to the coast,